Hey y'all, I'm just sitting out here in the car waiting on baby to finish cheer, and I had a little something on my mind again. And can I just be honest? Can I be transparent here and tell you guys that I am horribly nervous and petrified because I want to talk about something I've never talked about before. Not really publicly. I've made a social media post here or there, but I've never talked about it in real life, like really what it felt like going through a divorce as a church girl. And honestly, over the last week or two, it's just been something that's been really, really heavy on my heart because we don't talk about it a lot. And for everyone who knows me outside of social media, you know that I grew up cool JC. And honestly, we don't believe in divorce. If I can say it that way, we don't believe in divorce. And so walking away from my first marriage was one of the hardest things I had ever done. And with it came a certain amount of grief and loss. And talking about divorce coming from a church girl's perspective, and then also the fact that you're grieving the loss of your marriage. Those are two things that I really feel like we need to start talking about a bit more about. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about it because, like I said, going through a divorce is just as painful as any other type of loss you might experience, right? A lot of times when we start talking about grieving things, we talk about grieving the loss of a loved one. We don't necessarily talk about things like marriages or even jobs, things like that. But even in those instances, we grieve, we hurt. We have moments of anger. We have moments of shame. We have moments of disappointment. Like every other normal feeling we have when we're grieving, we experience that. And I know for me, I never expected to be divorced. I never expected that. And I think most people, especially if you grew up churchy like I did, divorce was never an option. It was never the thing you wanted to do. It was never something that you wanted people to be able to have conversations about. Because come on, let's be honest. We know we have these conversations, right? People talk about these things. Well, such and such got a divorce. I wonder what happened. And then for those things that people don't know, they make them up, right? And people you think would be there to support you, sometimes people don't know how to support, right? Because from their perspective, again, we shouldn't be getting a divorce. And there's little to no reason to justify doing so. But, there comes a certain time in life when we have to make some hard decisions, right? Because when we get married, we marry with the intent of being loved, being honored, being cherished, being in relationships where there's fidelity, where there's faithfulness, where there isn't mistreatment. And that's not to say that we don't have miscommunication sometimes. That's not to say that we don't have arguments. That's not to say that we don't have to agree to disagree sometimes. But sometimes in relationships, it gets deeper than that, right? There's a difference between having an argument and being constantly belittled. There's a difference between having a disagreement about finances and you being completely cut off from all of the finances in the household, and there is something that you may want or need and you're told that there are no finances for it, but then that person has whatever they want and need and it's always there and available, right? There's a difference between someone saying that they made a mistake. And you know, that's a whole other conversation when we start talking about infidelity and things like that within a relationship. But there is something to be said for when someone makes a mistake and when someone makes the same mistake over and over and over and over and over again. You know, and while I do believe God honors marriage, marriage is beautiful. I believe that he created it for us. In my opinion, it's a gift to us. And I'm not saying that's biblical, but I can tell you that I am far better with my spouse than I am by myself, right? I think that God honors marriage, but I also believe in him honoring marriage. He also wants us to be treated in the way that we should be treated, because we're called to respect our husbands and our husbands are called to love us, right? And husbands, and I'm speaking from a female perspective because of course I'm a woman, but you know, our husbands are called to love us in the way that Christ loved the church. And in Christ loving us, he sacrificed himself for us, right? He loved us completely, wholly with himself, and he loves us without inflicting pain on us. And so how can a spouse, whether the husband or the wife, say they love you and they're constantly inflicting pain? And then how much of that are you supposed to tolerate? How much therapy are you supposed to go to? How much relationship counseling are you supposed to go to before you say, hey, while God honors marriage, this is not his will for my life? Nowhere in the Bible does it say we're supposed to accept being mistreated. And some of us get mistreated to the point that it is literally abuse. But we don't even have the language for it until you go to therapy and your therapist says, hey, I understand that you keep saying that your husband mistreated you, but your husband abused you. You were abused emotionally. You were abused mentally. The only thing he never did was hit you. But every other way that he could mistreat you, he did. And we're not talking about isolated instances. We're talking about things that happened over and over and over again. And you stayed, right? Because that's what you felt as the wife you were called to do, because God hates divorce. Because a marital covenant is supposed to be forever. But what happens when that promise to love, honor, and cherish is broken over and over again, and you find that bits and pieces of yourself are chipped away each and every time? While you're trying to hold that relationship together, you find that you're losing more and more and more of yourself in the relationship. I know for myself, I want to say, it's hard. Because I truly don't believe the majority of people who get married with the intent of getting divorced. I really don't think that's the case. And of course we have some outliers out there. But I really don't think that's the case. But I think sometimes we get to this place where we really have to seek God's face about where we are in our situation and really pray and ask him for the strength and his will for your life. And again, I'm talking about me and some of the things that I experienced, the amount of shame that I carried. I carried so much shame for so long because honestly, I never wanted to be divorced. I never wanted to be that person. You know, I didn't get married the first time until I was in my mid-30s. And I had waited a long time. And then I married who I consider to be one of my very, very best friends. And things did not go the way I would have thought they would have. There were things that were done. There were things that were said. I never would have imagined in my entire life. And there are some things, even to this day, I have a hard time reconciling just because I never imagined. And then when you couple this feeling that you have for someone and you couple that with your religious beliefs, that as a wife, you're supposed to be long-suffering. You're supposed to pray. You're supposed to fast. And if there is something that's not working out in your relationship, that means that you're doing something wrong. And sometimes that's just not the case. And again, I'm just talking for me. And everybody has, you know, their own testimonies. And you know what they say. Anytime there's a story being told, there's my side, your side, and the truth. And the truth is somewhere in the middle. So I'm sharing from my perspective. But I know what it's like to be ashamed. I know what it's like to be hurting. I know what it's like to feel like God has somehow forgotten about you. And then how do you move forward? Once you get to that space of, this is not God's will for my life. And then once you make that decision, how do you work through the hurt and the pain that you have and the grief that you go through, because now the life you dreamt for yourself is no longer. The person you thought you were going to spend the rest of your life with is not the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. How do you move forward from that? And so what I would like to encourage anyone who's in this particular situation right now to do, if you're a believer, continue to pray and seek God's face and His will for your life. Make sure you have a good therapist. Talk to someone, a professional, who can give you tools and skills that you can use to help navigate whatever your situation is. Lean on your support network. And when I say that, you know, be mindful of your support network. Because everyone isn't a good source to communicate with or to seek advice from, because you want to talk to someone who you can trust with the issues of your heart and not have to be concerned that after you talk to them, everybody in the neighborhood is going to hear about it. Right? And then just know, whatever decision you make, whatever direction God leads you in, just know that you will be okay. I'm not going to tell you it's going to be easy. I'm not going to tell you that there won't be days when you cry. Because I'm going to tell you, I cried for days, months even. And I would ask God, like, why? Because there are just some things you never expect, right? And I can't say that I got answers for every single question that I asked. But one thing I learned is that even in my darkest hours, He was there with me. I was never alone. And there were some days that I really, the amount of shame and disappointment and heartache that I carried. But at some point, the sun started to shine again. And I would have days where I'll be honest with you, it had even got to the point where my baby described my face as melting. And she would cry because she said, Mommy's face looks so sad all the time. And for my baby to say that, like, it just broke my heart all over again. But that's how horribly I was hurting in that season of my life. You know, I was just always sad and trying to learn how to navigate life without my parents, parenting Karis, and then losing my marriage all at the same time. It was a rough season in life. But even throughout that, God is faithful. And so I would also like to say that whatever happens is only a season. It won't always be like this. Whatever this is, it may be storming right now in life, but eventually the sun will shine again. And even if you are in a season where you've already gone through a divorce and you're wondering if you'll ever marry again, if you're wondering if you'll ever find love again, I want to tell you that it's possible. It's possible. And it may come in a package that you never expected. You know, I've said that before. I knew I eventually wanted to find love again, but I wasn't expecting it when I found it. Or I should say when it found me. Because love found me. Because truly I wasn't looking for it. But it was looking for me. And I consider myself tremendously blessed to have been blessed with this man that I truly believe God crafted just for me. You know, and I oftentimes, when I was young, I used to hear people, I want everything back that the devil stole from me. And I'm here to tell you some stuff he can keep. Okay? I can truthfully say that God gave me something new and beautiful. He crafted something for me in my current relationship that I couldn't even have imagined for myself. I wouldn't have had sense enough to pray for the gift that I've been given. And so I want to say to all of my sisters, everyone who's going through this type of situation where you may be going through an uncoupling, you're getting divorced, or you're already divorced and you're hurting, just know it won't always be like this. It won't. It won't. God is yet faithful. And despite what it looks like, despite what you may hear, He loves you. He loves you so much. And His will for our lives is that we would have life and have it more abundantly, right? That we would be the head and not the tail. The lender, not the borrower. We are His children. And He said that He would not withhold any good thing from us. And that includes the people that He puts in our lives. Because the blessings of the Lord maketh rich and adds no sorrow. And I believe that includes man, women, and things, inanimate objects too. The blessings of the Lord maketh rich and adds no sorrow. So, if this is your story, if this is your testimony, I'm thinking about you and I'm praying for you. Like I said, it won't always be like this. And even though it's raining now, the sun will eventually shine again. I love you. Bye.